Across Iran, from the bustling streets of Tehran to the historic avenues of Isfahan, the nation is erupting in fury. The air is thick with tension, and the sound of defiance echoes through city squares and alleyways alike. What began as scattered protests over rising prices and political repression has now become a nationwide uprising. Government buildings burn against the night sky, and the regime's once iron grip is slipping, unable to contain the tidal wave of anger surging through the population. But beneath the chaos and the headlines lies a deeper, more insidious story, one of a regime orchestrating the largest state asset transfer in modern history. As the nation teeters, those in power are looting the country's wealth, siphoning off resources as the system collapses around them. While the world's attention is fixed on the violence in the streets, Iran's elite are quietly moving billions, money, gold, and even their own families out of the country. They are preparing for comfortable exile in the very Western capitals they once condemned, securing their futures as ordinary Iranians face uncertainty and fear. Money, gold, priceless art and jewelry, even their families are being spirited away, their escape routes mapped out long before the first protester took to the streets. These departures are not just about safety, they are about preserving power and privilege, no matter the cost to the nation left behind. The protests are a symptom. The true disease is a staggering, systematic corruption that has hollowed out Iran from within. Decades of embezzlement and mismanagement have left the country's institutions fragile and its people desperate. The government's brutal crackdown, with a death toll now exceeding 20,000, is not just about clinging to power, it's a desperate effort to buy time, to finish the heist before the final collapse. Each act of violence is a calculated move to delay the inevitable reckoning. The violence in the streets and the silent flight of capital are two sides of the same coin, the final act of a regime abandoning the nation it once claimed to serve. As the economy unravels, the powerful retreat, leaving chaos in their wake. This is the story of a dual collapse, of ideology, and of a nation's future, stolen in plain sight. As hope flickers in the hearts of protesters, the question remains, what will rise from the ashes of a country betrayed by its own leaders? Iran's rulers are executing a multi-pronged escape, digital transfers of billions, physical gold shipments, and securing Western visas for their families. Intelligence reports reveal Mujtaba Khamenei, the supreme leader's son, moving $1.5 billion through shell companies to Dubai, just one example of a constant outflow. Russian and Belarusian military planes are flying gold bullion from Tehran to Moscow, stripping Iran's vaults in exchange for political sanctuary. Meanwhile, the families of top officials are quietly obtaining French and British residency, preparing for a life of luxury abroad. This is not just theft, it's a coordinated, comprehensive exit plan, with the regime's leaders taking the treasury with them as they flee. At the heart of this theft is Saytad, a financial empire worth up to $170 billion, controlled by the supreme leader. Alongside the IRGC and other shadowy foundations, these entities have created a parallel economy, accountable only to the elite. International investigators estimate up to $250 billion is being siphoned from Iran, laundered through crypto, shell companies, and shadow banks in Dubai, Istanbul, and Moscow. The U.S. Treasury is tracking tens of millions in illicit funds daily, calling it rats fleeing the ship. This is not new, but now the regime's goal is liquidation, draining the nation dry before the collapse. The result is economic devastation, a crisis that has seeped into every corner of daily life. As billions vanish from the system, Iran's banks are failing at an unprecedented rate, leaving citizens in a state of panic and uncertainty. ATMs are empty, and millions can't access their savings. For many, years of hard work and careful saving have evaporated overnight. Hyperinflation has destroyed the rial. The currency's value plummets by the day, making even basic transactions a challenge. Prices for food and medicine double overnight, and shelves in stores grow emptier as imports dry up and local production collapses. The once stable middle class is plunged into poverty, forced to make impossible choices just to survive. This collapse isn't accidental. It's the direct result of the elite draining the country's liquidity for personal gain, enriching themselves while millions suffer. Strikes erupt as workers go unpaid for months. Frustration and anger spill into the streets as families struggle to afford even the basics. Oil workers, teachers, and public employees join the protests, demanding justice and the wages they are owed. Pensioners are left destitute, businesses shutter, unemployment soars, and entire communities are hollowed out by the crisis. The The state can't meet its basic obligations, public services falter, infrastructure crumbles, and daily life becomes a struggle. Protests now target banks and tax offices, the visible symbols of the theft, as anger turns to action. These are not random acts but focused rage against the financial architecture that has robbed a nation of its future. The uprising has become a revolt against the economic elite, as ordinary Iranians demand accountability and a chance to reclaim their lives. The Iranian people's fury has transformed protest into open rebellion, uniting all classes under the demand for economic justice. Bank branches and tax offices are torched, not as mindless destruction, but as a message. The people know where the money has gone. Strikes by oil workers, railway staff, and teachers have paralyzed the country, starving the regime of its last resources. The diaspora and opposition amplify calls for justice, with Reza Pahlavi demanding the freezing and return of stolen assets. This wealth belongs to the nation, not the mullahs, he declares, echoing the hopes of millions. The rebellion now has a clear objective: restitution and the rebuilding of a free Iran. The movement is no longer just about politics, it's about reclaiming a stolen future. The regime's greatest threat now comes from within. News of leaders preparing their escape has shattered morale in the IRGC and Basij. Security forces, unpaid and betrayed, are refusing orders, abandoning posts, and in some cases, joining protesters. The social contract, loyalty in exchange for security, has collapsed. Defections are spreading as rank and file realize their commanders are fleeing with fortunes, leaving them behind. International observers confirm the wall of repression is crumbling from inside. Intelligence leaks and statements from opposition figures reveal a regime in panic, with escape plans underway at the highest levels. The system is failing, not just from public revolt, but from the disintegration of its own enforcers. The crisis unfolding today carries haunting echoes of 1979, a year that forever changed Iran's destiny. But this time, the stakes are even higher. The regime isn't just fleeing with personal fortunes, it's attempting to vanish with the nation's entire treasury, draining the wealth of generations in a desperate bid for survival. The sense of déjà vu is unmistakable, yet the scale of the betrayal is unprecedented. Intelligence reports have revealed a chilling Plan B. Supreme Leader Khamenei and his closest allies are preparing to escape to Moscow, echoing the Shah's final, desperate flight. But unlike the Shah, they leave not as exiles, but as plunderers, intent on taking the nation's riches with them. The world watches as history threatens to repeat itself, but with even greater consequences. The collapse of Iran's regime will send shockwaves across the Middle East, redrawing alliances and borders. The region, already volatile, faces a future of uncertainty, as old power structures crumble and new ones struggle to emerge. With Iran's financial pipeline abruptly severed, its network of proxy forces, Hezbollah in Lebanon, Iraqi militias, the Houthis in Yemen, will be left leaderless and adrift. Their influence, once fueled by Tehran's billions, will rapidly diminish, leaving a dangerous vacuum in their wake. This sudden power vacuum could plunge the region into chaos, sparking new conflicts and rivalries. Yet within this turmoil lies a rare opportunity, a chance for a new, more stable order to take root if leaders and citizens can seize the moment. The Iranian opposition is calling on the world to freeze and repatriate an estimated $250 billion in stolen assets. These funds, they argue, are essential to rebuild a shattered nation and restore hope to millions who have suffered under decades of corruption. The end of the Islamic Republic could mark not just the fall of a regime, but the rebirth of a nation, one that is free, democratic, and finally in the hands of its own people. The spirit of 1979 returns, but this time, the dream of freedom feels within reach. Around the globe, people watch in anticipation as Iran stands at a crossroads, on the edge of chaos, but also on the brink of hope. The world's eyes are fixed on what comes next. For the first time in decades, the future is uncertain, but it is also open, ready to be claimed by the people of Iran themselves.